people have to recognize how running has never been truly open and available because, we've been struggling. Any day I go for a run, like I will never regret that, even if it's the worst run of my life. Because, what I say often is the minute running stops teaching me stuff, like I'll stop running. Racism is not about being good or bad, it's about buying into a system. And I hope this chapter is helpful for Black and Brown people, but also for white people to understand that when we're upset about things and when we're saying things, we're not saying you, white person, are bad. We're saying the system that prioritizes you is what's bad. And that's what we want to change. And we want you to be upset about that too, because guess what? White supremacy isn't good for you either.
I'm Joshua Potts, Mr. Pottsville, always with the brother with the same mother, Aaron Potts, Super Hot Potts, and you're watching and listening to your favorite two Black runners every single
Two Black, two.
Let them know.
Stay. We are back with another one, a special episode. Black, this is we did the Black Tastemakers. We called it that last year. We're gonna stick with that because we're doing that year around. Super excited for our guests, but Joshua, finish us off with this intro. Get it in.
Bro, I'm pretty sure this is third appearance. This the third? Is this the most ever on the podcast, on the Two Black Runners podcast? I think soon enough, we're going to have to hang this person's place in the rafters of the Black Runners Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? She is a mother. She is a co-chair of the Running Industry Diversity Coalition, a Brooks Run Happy activist, a KCTS9 host. Hold on. A Wazelle-sponsored athlete with her own clothing line for sale right now. A&B, a collection she wants to embody Black history, Black present, and Black futures. And the author of Running While Black. We talking about all that today. We talking about Alison Mariella Désir on the podcast with us. It's exciting to be back. It's exciting to be back for you back on.
Thank you so much. I think of you as my brothers, my co-conspirators, and I love watching you fly, and I'm excited to be here as always.
Appreciate that for sure. And I think of you the same, big sis, especially after reading Running While Black, reading the book, I'm like, man, we have so many parallels. I feel like there is so much. I really love that you're doing all these you're doing so much things that I want to do. Honestly, you are low key my mentor from afar. So reading your book, I went back and listened to our podcast when we were at the conference, and you said you wanted running leaders to relate and feel seen. 100% did that. 100% did that for me. So I just want to give you your kudos on that. Just to start off.
Thank you. It's so good to hear because the book is in the pre-order time and it'll be out soon. So not that many people have read it. So every time I get feedback, I'm like, oh, it's working. Yay. Thank you.
And I will say for me, let me put out here a disclaimer. I don't like to read. I'm not a big reader. I want to read more though. And so, but being able to get the book, that's an honor just in itself to trust us with this right here. I really do take honor that I wanted to get this read. I even got the book. I set it up. You feel me? In my background in the shop.
I love it.
You know what I mean? So it is an easy read though. Aaron was telling me about that. It definitely is an easy read. There are some big words in there too though. I had to look up those words up. And I had my pencil. I was writing it down. I felt like I was really studying it and took a lot away from the book. I'm gonna try and keep on finishing it all the way through because I think there's certain things, especially, and I think we're talking to the audience that you want to sell to. And so if anybody that feels man, I don't know if I should get this book because I'm not a big reader or anything like that. I think once you start to sink into your teeth into something that you really love, especially I love running and I'm Black. So this is right up my alley and it has a lot of parallels, kind of like what Aaron was saying, that you're naturally just going to want to keep on reading and it's going to feel easier. You know what I mean? I feel like Aaron, you experienced that.
I also say if you're not Black, I still think you will really enjoy this book because this book is a journey. It is a journey from someone that you see their whole upbringing. You see them when they were, down at their lowest, and how they found something that led them really to their purpose and to where we're at now. So I think it's just an incredible story. And as you just heard Joshua list off all the different things that Alison does, you're going to find out how she did those things. So if you're anyone that's just interested in running for sure, or you're interested in a story of like triumph and and conquering and growth and growth and getting out of a hard place, I think it's very motivating. It's very inspiring. So I think it's a great read for anyone. But Alison, we just gave you a whole bunch of flowers right now. We just really gassed you up right now.
I'm like, oh my God. And I also want to add that there is an audiobook. I've been recording the audiobook, and it's such a cool experience because it's like you start to really think about the power of your voice. And there's a lot of dialogue in my book. So I'm like playing around with my voice and doing all this fun stuff. So yeah, if like physically reading a book is not your thing, get that audiobook.
And I feel like that's exciting too, because like I was marking my book like just my pencil. I like just regular pencils. This is a smaller pencil I'm using, but I'm just using my pencil. And at certain points, like I was putting like ha ha ha, like certain points, because like you really had me laughing. Like hey, let me tell you, there's some people in this book, you feel me, about like, come on, man, like really, like you know what I'm talking about. So like there definitely are some parts like I'm like laughing. I think it's just like the culture thing, like if we have the similar experiences definitely as runners and being Black and distance running. So like I was definitely laughing throughout. So I think it will be interesting to hear the audiobook, then to hear the inflection like in your voice during certain points, like it'll definitely make you laugh.
I love that. Thank you.
But Alison, like Joshua just said, you got a clothing line now with Wazel, the AMD, and then you're a TV host. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. But your schedule is always crazy. Like, how are you doing right now? Launching the clothing line, and doing all these different things.
Yeah, thank you. It's it's so exciting, and I think through reading my book, you do get a taste through my upbringing and just through my parents, my education, and also just like who I've always been as a little kid, doing a million things at once. And what's so special about this moment is that I'm able to explore every side of myself, right? Like being a TV host was not something I didn't ever really think about it. I sort of wished I could be a VJ on MTV back in the day because it looked like so much fun, but it wasn't like something I really thought about. But it was an opportunity that was presented to me by this woman. I had been on a panel with her, and when she found out I was moving to Seattle, she had just gotten a role at the local PBS station, Cascade Public Media. And she asked me, have you ever wanted to have your own TV show? I was like, are you kidding me? Like, sure. And she's like, all right, put together a proposal. And I put together this idea to have a show that gives platform to Black, Indigenous people of color reclaiming the outdoors. So this summer, one of the many things I've done is, connect with people in the outdoors, people who are cycling, people who are hiking, people who are fishing, right? And profiling these people. And I'm excited to share their story. But yeah, it's just like, I'm always busy, but feeling really, really fulfilled. And I'm able to tell my story, but more than that, like tell other people's story, which is just so cool to be part of.
Wait, that sounds crazy. Like,
fly fishing and kayaking. I'm trying all this stuff. I went climbing, like, shit that Black people don't do.
Yeah,
we do it. We do it.
Yeah, such a good, like, because we've been talking to some people too, just about like in the outdoor space, in the trail running space, and like wanting to do things like that, and to see like you actually doing these things, like being a trailblazer in such a way, and like how you're doing it. I feel like even this book, Running While Black, is trailblazing in that sense. You know what I mean? Like during this, as you go through this book tour and everything, and all the things that you're doing, is that like hitting you more and more, like realizing the importance of all this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, representation we know is critical. And and also making sure that people know that these things that seem scary for valid reasons, right? Like, one, because our safety is often compromised in these spaces, our physical, psychological safety. Two, they can be expensive, they can be far away. You go through your head about, like, how do I do this? Right. So having somebody like you who you can connect with,
Yeah.
showcase these things is everything. And it's the same way for me too, right? Like on this TV show, or even, things that I mentioned in my book, it's because other people have welcomed me in, have taken me under their wing. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. Like, I know the huge impact you can make on people because I've experienced it and I've helped other people. So it's like, yo, come on, let's go, let's do some. Right?
Yeah, I think that's so fitting because, like, in your book, you talk about, the reason you started to run the marathon is you saw, one of your black friends doing it, and if it, not for that you seeing that person,
Yep.
who knows? Who knows if you're where you're at today and doing what you're doing today? So that is just fitting that, years
Exactly.
down the line you stayed with it, and now you're hosting this show, introducing people to the outdoors. And one other thing you said was like how you're like, yo, like, we do this. You don't think black people do this? We do
Mm,
this. I love how you opened up the book with that timeline of
mm,
history. Can you talk about why
yeah.
what inspired you to do that?
Yeah. So, the beginning of my book, you'll see a timeline. On one side, you see running history. On the other side, you see what I'm calling Black people's reality. And the idea for this timeline, two things prompted the idea for this timeline. One, I was reading about, the so-called beginning of long distance running and Bill Bowerman hosting that run at Haywood Field in 1963. And I was like, 1963, what were Black people doing in 1963? And I was like, oh, that's right. We didn't have anywhere to live. We were fighting for the right to vote. There were marches on Washington. It's like, so at the same time that this white man in Oregon, the whitest state in the country that forbade Black people from living there, the same time he was saying, like, let's go outside and run, Black people were fighting just to exist. The other piece, I remember looking at the date of 1897, which is the date that of the first Boston Marathon, I believe, or the date of the BAA was founded. And I remembered from history class, 1896, Plessy versus Ferguson, right, which was the case
Mhm.
that led to Jim Crow segregation. And I was just like, holy crap, there are two different worlds here.
Yeah,
There's the white world, which essentially was the running world. And then there was the Black world, where, no wonder we weren't being centered or talked about, even if we were in fact doing these things, which we were, read my book, right? But no wonder we weren't getting spotlighted. No wonder why it was so much more difficult, right? No wonder why Ted Corbett was missing some events because he couldn't travel safely through this country and he couldn't find somewhere to sleep before a track meet, right?
it's
So I was like,
crazy.
okay, like, we got to put this side by side, and people have to recognize how running has never been truly open and available because, we've been struggling.
Yeah, and like running is such a freeing thing, like in the sport itself and be able to do that and be able like to separate that time to go out and like have go for a run, to literally
Mm,
leave like your home where you're the safest to do that. Like you have to have a feeling of a like absolute freedom in a sense,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
to be like completely held back during those hard times. It's all like it like running is not on your mind. It's definitely was a leisure sport, and definitely when you're not doing it for like competition or something like that. So like I think that is like to open up your book in that way is super great. And what I realized too from just reading this, I read mostly the first half too. And I know we said we cousins, we brother sister. Like Allison, you're low key a nerd. Like I'm being real
I
here. Like
know, I know. I'm
like
super nerdy. I'm super nerdy. Yup, you got me.
like but that was cool though to like see like just how you were breaking things down and you as like a kid and like how you consumed everything. I was
Yeah,
like that really shaped you to the person that you were today. Like man, like you were like in the books, like in the
yeah,
library, like for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, that's so funny that you say that because um it's so true. Like and I credit my parents to this. My parents were always like putting a book in my hand and teaching us things and having these like intense conversations around the world that I didn't really understand, but I just like came to understand them. And yeah, I've always been curious about the world. If there's one thing I teach my son, it's going to be to be curious and don't believe what you read, right? Because what you read um, historically and still presently is written by people who have the money, the time, the power, right? I just read a statistic that in 2020, the New York Times reported that only 5% of books published are by people who are non-white, right? So
Wow.
5%. So I'm one of those 5%. Think about how many people there are in the world. So think about how many books have been written from a perspective of having this kind of power, the power connected with being white, right? Of course, white people have their struggles. White people also grow up in poverty. White people are also disabled, LGBTQ, and have struggles because of those marginalized identity. But I'm talking about the particular power that comes with being white, being always seen in spaces, being assumed to be, correct and the normal and the default, right? Like that's our history books, y'all. That's most everything we consume. Think about all the podcasts, right?
Yeah.
Like it's y'all are the exception, and it's not because we aren't exceptional. It's for other reasons.
Most definitely. And like just knowing your history and your culture is so important. You talked about your dad being Haitian and your mom Colombian, and it's just like them talking about where you came from and everything. And then you're going and doing these book reports in class, and like I relate to that because I remember my dad told me about Malcolm X like at a young age and why his last name was X. And I remember like learning about like Jesse Owens, like at a very young age, doing a book report on him, like in class, and like the sense of pride that like that came with that and knowing yourself. But it's a weird space to be in when you're still like when you're in these white spaces that you talk about, like you know all this about yourself, and then you're still in these white spaces that are, it just I don't even know. It's just an interesting space to be in. How do you like now that you have like a son, you know what I mean? Like the chapter I'm reading right now, you're talking about like, man, am I making him like too comfortable? How do I teach him to like kind of like master this skill
Yeah.
in these areas? Because it's like a part of being Black in America. It's a part of me and Joshua being two Black runners, like being two Black cross country runners, and you're super into the industry. Is
Yeah, I mean, I think we spoke a little bit about this when we in our last podcast, and Josh had his hair big, and I was saying how beautiful his hair was, and how I loved just that he's taking up all that space and being his authentic self. But also, it made me really nervous for him because he drew a lot of eyes, right? Like this young, attractive, smart Black man with a fro, right? Like that means that more eyes are on you. That means that when you walk into a place, people are looking at you even more than they would before. Racist people start to develop ideas about who you are and what it means for you to be in spaces. And you could get killed because of it, right? Because you make people uncomfortable. So what I'm talking about in the book is with my son, Corey, even his name, Corey Henri. Corey means to run because it's been foundational in my life. And Henri, he's named after Henri Christophe, which is one of the fathers of the Haitian Revolution. So I think about, I want him to know his story, his family's story. I want him to be so confident. I want him to not think twice about trying things or putting himself in spaces that historically people like him haven't been. But I also want him to wave hello to the police officer, to say sir and ma'am, to not raise his voice, to not look intimidating, right? Like being mindful of what toys do I give him so that he's not shot like Tamir Rice. it's this balance. Like you want to raise a confident person, but who also knows that you can't win in the face of white supremacy, you know?
Yeah.
And that's really hard. I fight with Amir all the time. I'm like, why do you have to be so much? Why do you have to be yourself? Can't you? And he's like, why am I being myself? I'm like, because you know they want to kill you, right? Like, God forbid you get stopped by the cops. And it's just this like unfortunate math that you got to do in your head. Is it worth it?
Yeah. And I think it was really, I feel like with you in the home, you and Amir in the home, and like you like talking to Corey and bringing him up through your chapter, White Space. Like I was reading that, and I feel like that chapter, at least my personal opinion, when I was reading, I was like, I don't really feel like, I feel like this is about Black space. Like when you're talking about white space, because it really, that chapter really hit home to me. The influence of your parents, and I feel like you've told this story a lot before on several podcasts about your like project that made you realize like that you don't really, that you're not, this world wasn't made for you in a sense. And like through that chapter, it kind of like you coming to that conclusion wasn't because like your teacher, you probably had, your teacher was probably great, you feel me, but like your teacher wasn't the one that taught you through to this conclusion. It was all those conversations with your dad at home where you just wanted to know one thing about the Haiti Revolution, then he gave you the entire history. Like, bro, like I'm just trying to like, I'm trying to read my book, you feel me? Like
you listen, you would not survive a day in my father's house not wanting to read. Oh Josh, he'd have you reading the encyclopedia front to back with book reports. No, you're true. And I love that. Yeah. What I really am talking about is Black space. And I'm so intentional in my current home, right? Like I'm looking at the walls and this is a fake background, but we only have artwork in the house, artwork and photography by Black and brown people. Right. So my son he's not going to ever question whether we're artists, whether we're, he's not ever going to not know who Malcolm X is, right? Like he, like me, is going to know more than the history books. And that just, I would say that that's not unusual. That's like all of us have some kind of learning in the home that supplements what we get in school.
Yeah, you really don't find out because that's how our house is, man. Everything up is like it's just Black people everywhere. You got the little Black like Christmas ornaments, like and you don't really realize like
we got like 7 Black Santas on the tree.
You can't tell us Santa wasn't Black.
Joshua, what was those little like Black like little like things that mommy gets? We always broke them.
What, the salt shakers?
They're not even salt shakers. Like I don't know, they're like people. I don't know,
the little Nutcracker people or
something like that.
They're just like they're just up. But then one other thing though, like when you said like your parents helped you when you like figured out yourself that like this world wasn't made for you. But I also realized too that how important that is, because the fact of like parents can also help their kids realize that this world is made just for you. That like it just shows how important like the home is, and like what you are teaching your kids and what you're not teaching your kids. And like like you can, bro, like like you people be at home just teaching, I don't know, just what you watching on TV may not, it's just cannot be the what news and whatever program you're watching is not the exact thing that your kid really needs to have empathy and everything in the world.
Bro, Joshua, you sure you don't like reading, bro?
I know. I'm like, damn, you have annotated this book. No, but the thing that you're saying also like highlights a real privilege that I had, that my son has, that it sounds like you had, being able to have your family at home, having your parents accessible. And that's because, for me, my parents had good jobs that paid enough money that they didn't have to work 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
They had, they also didn't have a level of trauma that led them to like drinking or to not wanting to be in the home, right? So all of these things, like that's also what I hope my book shows, and it's in a chapter later called Everything is Connected, that of course there's individual responsibility, right? Parents being negligent, right? There's a responsibility there, but we also have to understand what are the historical and intergenerational reasons why somebody might not be at home and a 5-year-old has to watch the kids, right? Okay, you got 3 jobs, you get home, you're tired, exhausted, your feet hurt, you take a drink, you go to sleep, you don't see your kids but one time a week, right? Like there's also a piece of that because of this society being so inequitable that people are forced into these positions to do what's best for their family, but ultimately neglects them and creates this cycle of trauma around not being cared for.
Yeah. I want to talk about how like running was really like this energizer for you that kind of brought us to, it was like this vehicle, like it was always within you. And then you were struggling with that depression. And I feel like running like really it allowed you to like kind of get back to like that inner child.
Yes.
And you doing like those book reports like and stuff. Am I right with that a little bit?
You're totally right. And that's the thing, like why I talk about running so much and why I wrote this book is because I love it and it saved my life. It continues to transform me. Any day I go for a run, like I will never regret that, even if it's the worst run of my life. Because, what I say often is the minute running stops teaching me stuff, like I'll stop running. And that hasn't happened yet. So running reconnected me to myself. Like I had definitely lost myself, gone inward, and life was difficult. And then running was this light and this energy.
What has running been teaching you recently as you go through life right now?
Yeah, running in this what do people say, in this chapter of my life?
In this season?
In this season, that's what people say. In this season, running is teaching me patience. It's patience with my body, patience. It's helping me have patience with just the chaos of having a 3-year-old. Patience in terms of my schedule is packed and it always feels like I can't fit anything in, but I must fit in that time for myself. Like running continues to teach me that, right? Like it's a better day if I've gone for a run, if I've done some type of movement. So yeah, I mean, I sometimes laugh. I think about how like before I was married, before I had my son, like how I used to think that I was too busy then. And I'm like, what was I doing? Busy doing what? Right? Like, so patience is what I'm being taught now.
So you're saying life just gets busier and busier? Like I
Listen,
feel like
I mean, I don't want to be like that person that's like, when you get older, but you are not busy, okay? Like you haven't seen busy until you're in charge of somebody else's life. And like every day I'm like, oh my God, is this going to be like the trauma that he talks to his therapist about? Because there's going to be something my son is going to therapy for. Like you just get busy. And the way the two of you are headed, like your trajectory in your career, you're not going to be able to fit in like ESPN and CNN and all those things at the same time. So it's coming.
When I was at UTMB, I was like, dang, like this jet lag is killing me. And then like one of my coworkers who's a mom is like, once you have kids, like jet lag doesn't even exist no more. Like
because you're never rested. So like, what does it matter?
Yeah, like time is just, it doesn't really matter. You just got to get stuff done. Like I'm like, dang.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But that's also like the beautiful gift about it, right? Like feel busy now. Like, you know what I mean? Like you live your life in the season that you're in, and you'll be ready when things change.
I also want to hear about too, like the beginning of Harlem Run. Cause like that really, I really relate to like what y'all are like what y'all were like trying to do with Harlem Run. Like we're two black. That's why I was so excited for this. Like we're two black runners, and we created this because we wanted to create basically a space for black people to come and athletes to share their story, a more inclusive, like open space. And to see that's what you did with Harlem Run, and you started, and then now you're doing so many different things. Did you see that coming at all?
Hell no. I had no idea. And if I had, I probably would have been terrified, right? Because like my life has been one of like incrementally learning the skills and being put in slash being pushed in thanks to mentors into these spaces. I want to go to that mentor thing really quickly and talk about Mary Wittenberg, who in the book, she makes a few appearances, and she is like, the biggest thing I learned from her is not to be jealous of other people, right? Like, and it's hard because especially in like a social media world where everybody is sharing their thing and feeling like, oh, I'm not doing enough or whatever. Mary was taught me like, you just have to celebrate other people, right? Like, and you're celebrating other people. You're not doing it for this reason, but you're celebrating other people brings energy back to you. And then you get to be excited for more people. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, so that being, she's somebody who has always been truly happy for me. And I mean, she said my name, New York Road Owners was looking for a new CEO, and she told me she put my name in the hat. And I was like, Mary, like, you're nuts. Stop it. But yeah, no, like with Harlem Run, I had no idea. It really just started with this idea of wanting to create a space to share what running had been with me, with other Black and Brown people. And um, and then like, wow, it was actually working. And then I noticed that there were like 7 other people who loved it as much as I did and wanted to be invested in it. And then I was like, okay, those people will be captains and pacers. And then it was like, oh, maybe like we could work with a brand to elevate what we were doing. And then it was right. So it was just this series of like, and
Yeah.
then, and having, all the privileges that I do have in my life in terms of education and,
Mhm.
being strategy minded to taking it to the next level. So like with you all, I mean, look at what you've already accomplished, right? Like you're at UTMB, you had a freaking couch at World Athletics. Like I mean, when I saw you guys on stage with that ESPN dude who's a big deal, I don't even remember his name, I was blown away. Like, so it's happening for you.
And I want to say too from this book. Well, thank you. First
Yeah.
off, I want to say from the book too. I want to shout out Mary Arnold. I feel like
Yes.
that was dope.
Another, yes, fairy godmother. Yes.
I was like, she had the domain and was like, hey, you need this, and then it just like took off from
Yes.
there. I feel like those small, like unexpected, like blessings, are things that make things great, things bigger. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was just one just small thing, just connected everything. Like I was like, dang, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful
It's
thing.
huge because also, like, I mean, there are people selling domains for thousands of dollars, right? And that's like a moment where you just like somebody is like, I can be helpful,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
wanting nothing in return, and she never has.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
saw the vision. She saw the
Yeah.
vision. And like, I think too, I don't know. I feel like, because I was like, what, 2014 ish when you had Harlem Run. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that was like, because like, I feel like running crews are just so big and maybe they were big then,
Mm.
but like, I just feel like they're all on social media now. Like,
they
everybody knows
they
about
don't,
them.
yeah, it was not the same, right? And it's like sometimes I look at new clubs and crews founding starting, and I love it, but they'll post a run that they're starting for the first time and like 25 people will come, and I'm like, do you know how lucky you are?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, we have primed the world for this. Like,
yes.
damn, I was out there like crying and begging, and it's wonderful. It's just one of those things like old people are like, do you know what it was like when in my day? It was a
But
very different climate.
that's why I think it's so cool that you're writing this book because,
Mm,
like for someone like me, it's like you're just discovering. Like the whole thing is like you're seeing somebody with a similar story to you
mm-hmm,
do these things. Like coming from where I'm at, I would think I would have to be like an Olympian or something
mm,
to have my own clothing line, write a
mm,
Yeah.
book,
mm,
like what why would anyone want to hear about my story? Like I didn't accomplish anything. And I think
mm.
that's where I think athletes can learn from this
Absolutely.
is the way you described running. You said it's you go out to run to learn, like to
Mm,
be
mm-hmm,
curious. You know what
mm-hmm,
I mean? And like as someone that tried to be a professional athlete, or you're a professional athlete and you retire, sometimes it's hard to redevelop that relationship with running because like you're not trying to, it would be healthy for you to just be running to learn and try to be better, but you're trying to be the best. And if you're like, yo, if I'm not trying to be the best, why am I working out? Why am I doing anything? And it's good because it's good for you,
Exactly. Yeah. I think, again, I always want to acknowledge like the privilege that I have in terms of education and, even being like somebody who is objectively attractive, right? Like there's a difference, I would say, the two of you too, right? Like people, we have a much easier time in this world, for better, for worse. But yeah, like I also didn't think that regular, I think what Josh called me a jogger the first time we talked.
I was messed up, bro.
Like that's always come back.
Come on, man.
Hey, I think hobby joggers.
He called me a hobby jogger.
Wow,
they're good for the community. I don't know why that's bad.
No, man.
Yeah, listen, put some respect on my name. But no.
Under Armour sponsored athlete, bro. What you mean? Come on.
I know you did have people. You had people from Italy taking pictures with you in the middle of the New York City Marathon, like a random person.
On, man.
Like, wait, were you in Runner's World? What?
Yes. So anyway, but no, the truth is like, there is enough space for everyone. And I get frustrated when I hear this conversation. Like, of course, there are many elite athletes who are not paid what they're worth. And that is, one of many issues that the industry needs to address. Fair pay, right? But also there is enough money and support for non-elite athletes to share their experience and to be sponsored and to have opportunities, right? It's not like either or. And I talk about that in my book too, about like, we tend to think that there's only, the circle is this big for who can have stuff. But actually, like the circle can widen and more people can have access. So yeah, I would never, and so much of my life has been about people going out on a limb for me and supporting me. And that's why I'm really intent on like wanting to do the same for other people. Again, we're all super busy, but like, if I could just send an email or like connect you in some way, then like, let me know.
And that honestly like reminds me of like when you're talking about, the running at the Boston Marathon and your experience there versus like, people were mad that you got in because you were like sponsored and doing this special event, and it kind of, and it's like you're saying, like you don't have to be elite. I think there's a lot of more opportunity, like even from what you're doing. I think elite people can learn from it that are underpaid for other stuff that they can do to affect change or fuel their passion. But I think about all the people at UTMB. Like not everyone there was the top people. There was so many people that got to race there and had the privilege to get there and the money to get there. And there's a lot of like amazing stories. So like, I mean, that's one of the things with the book, like running, really, there's so much opportunity to make it inclusive and get so many different type of people out there. And that's what makes those events like so amazing and like beautiful to see.
Yeah, like, I love watching elite athletes compete. I have so much respect for them. And also it's wonderful when all of us get an opportunity, within reason, right? We're not like gonna go compete at the Olympics, right? But like in these spaces, like UTMB, like you're talking about, where was the intentional thought about what athletes were showing up? Where was the intentional thought about who was covering the event from a PR, media, logistics, planning perspective, right? Like it just so happened that like only mostly white people showed up. Like I've heard like, off the record, a friend of mine shared that this one brand sent 124 people to UTMB. Less than 5 were non-white. Like,
wow.
Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? So, and sometimes people just look at DEI as a bucket or like, this is what we're doing for BIPOC athletes. No, it has to be built into everything that you're doing. Who are the vendors that are working with this particular event? Who are the photographers? Who are the podcasters? Who is going to be there? Who are the influencers, right? Like, so again, these are the things that I hope my book encourages people to think about and talk about.
As we talk about like your career in a sense and like what you're doing compared to like elite athletes and stuff, do you feel like running's like in a revolution right now? Do you feel
Mm,
like it's just like becoming bigger and bigger each
mhm.
year, that like the opportunities in running are becoming like I don't know. Do you feel like it's like a revolution right now?
I do. I actually think in many ways, again, I talk about this in my book, but that running is experiencing a parallel experience to the United States, right? And so whenever change is happening, there are those people who are like, no, like running has to remain the same. Like the amount of people on Twitter talking about has become a spectacle. And who are all these people? And why are so many people interested? Because
Yeah.
they loved this little esoteric thing where wealthy white people would go and do this thing, right? You could say the
Mhm.
same for so many other events, like UTMB is just on our mind because it was recently. So you have those people who want to keep running white, keep running what it was. And then you have these other people who are newly awakened to these experiences, many of whom are Black, Indigenous people of color, and are getting into it, and it's exciting. And those are the people that that contributed to the boom during COVID-19, right? Like
Yeah.
those are all those new people that are like excited and trying new things. So you have this push and this pull. You have all of these innovators, including yourself. I would say Natasha Hastings also, like they had their track girls show. You have
Mhm.
all these influencers who are taking things to new levels and are watching all the ways that people were paying to watch track and field events during COVID, like all of these beautiful innovations. And you have the people that are like, no. So it's a push and the pull. And I think what happens is that like we'll keep going like forward, back, hopefully more forward than back. But I am here for it. I don't want running to be I don't want the industry to be the same in 20 years, in
Yeah.
5 years, in a year. Like, no, look at every other industry is changing rapidly. Um, so yeah, we just hopefully those people change with us, but if not, like they'll be looking at our backs.
What's it like too? Like, because I think about when you started to where you're at now. You've seen all of this in
Mm-hmm.
front of your eyes. You've been a part of it. But what's it like being in the position you're in now,
Mm.
with all of this change happen? Or even we could go into like the book when you're right when you're becoming a mom. The
Mm-hmm.
Ahmed Aubrey thing is
Mm-hmm.
happening, and you have so many experiences right
Mm-hmm.
before that. Like, what was it like? You know it's kind of like you went back to school and they were like, "Yo,
Mm.
do you know the lyrics to this Jay-Z song?"
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to hear from you, like a black woman.
Yeah. You're making such good parallels. I love that. And it's like I describe in the book, right? It's like on the one hand, I feel incredibly lucky that I have a platform and that people want to hear from me. That's like I don't take that for granted. Also, it's exhausting, and I'm not the only person, right? Like what you often see happen is that people are put on pedestals, and then few years from now, people will like take um, such excitement in knocking me off my pedestal,
Mhm.
right? Like we build
Yeah.
people up and then we love to see them fall. And
Yeah.
I try my hardest to always be authentic and like, no, I am a full person who says the wrong thing, who makes mistakes, who's done stupid in her past, right? Like I am not, do not put me on a pedestal. Let's be hand in hand. But it's hard to be it became exhausting to be the go-to voice. And so what I did was, guess what? I actually know somebody more qualified to speak about it. Guess what? This person has that experience, because I also have to be mindful that there's the one piece of being tokenized, put on a pedestal, and then there's the other piece of gatekeeping. And I don't want to do that either, right? Like I'm not the only one who can give this information. Um, and it still happens, like I'll go to events and white people love to come up and tell me about their black friends or their daughter married a black guy or they listen to this. And it's just at this point it's just funny. I'm like, wonderful.
I feel
A
you.
black person. That is, you're doing it.
uh to the like yo like I feel that though. I think I really liked your chapter about reframing.
Mm,
Like that is so like healthy. I learned a lot from just reading
mm,
that. But like it's just I don't even know how to describe it. It's interesting. It's like whoever, some people follow me, like I made that post, and like when that first happened, you know what I mean? It was so ridiculous. I was like, oh, whatever, I'll keep it going. But then yeah, like I said in the post, I was just real. Like I was like, yo, like I want to make this photo dump, but I'm not gonna not include this. But the reason I didn't want to make it, or I didn't want to say nothing, is because I didn't want that. I didn't want the text. I'm so sorry, like yada da da da. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like I'm not trying to be mad at that person for feeling something, but like from reading your chapter, what I learned is like, no, it's like I don't have to be mad. I'm not mad at them. I'm mad at how like the system in this world like
exactly
affects them, but it's just like they might truly be upset about this. They, or they don't know how to respond. This is what do I want them to say? So I think that has helped me like learn like how, I don't know. I feel like some of these things as like Black people in these spaces too, it's like you learn it without knowing you're learning. You're doing these things to like protect you. But yeah, I just kind of went off on a tangent, but I really liked that part of the chapter too, that chapter.
No, I'm so glad, because it's true. Like, so reframing is all about, I think this is a chapter where I talk about, I'm like, do I hate white people or do I hate white supremacy? Right? Because in the example you give, like, it is really frustrating when white people are turning to you as the only, or like apologizing for, some murder over here, and you're just like, leave me alone, right? But you also, so what I've understood for myself is that I don't hate white people. What upsets me is this whole system that prioritizes white people, that that teaches white people that that they can either be good or bad, right? And not that racism is not about being good or bad. It's about buying into a system. And I hope this chapter is helpful for Black and brown people, but also for white people to understand that when we're upset about things and when we're saying things, we're not saying you, white person, are bad. We're saying the system that prioritizes you is what's bad. And that's what we want to change. And we want you to be upset about that too, because guess what? White supremacy isn't good for you either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So thank you. I'm so glad that is landing.
No, most definitely.
I think everybody should buy that book, like, for that chapter. Honestly, that chapter was fire. Like,
Thank you.
It really. I don't even want to get into like all of it, just for people can like read it for the first time, like have that realization on their own and stuff like that, and like feel everything. But then one thing I want to talk about, like just from the book in general, is that I didn't get to get to this chapter, but like the unbearable whiteness of running wasn't that originally like your book title? So what went into, but like as I was reading, like definitely like the white space and like that chapter reframing, I'm all like, it makes sense like to have the book be titled this, because that is like that is not a that's a over not a I don't want to call it an issue, but an overwhelming topic like surrounding this entire book. But like
it was so you're right. The initial title was The Unbearable Whiteness of Running. And as I was working on the book, and as the book became more of a personal memoir and my story became more central, I realized that what I'm talking about in this book is really my experience running while Black, living while Black, right? And I wanted to I wanted this to be a book, even though we're talking about whiteness, that centered us, that told our experiences, that opened a window for people into what at least one Black woman experiences moving through this world. And part of that experience is experiencing how unbearable whiteness could be. So I just thought it was a way to reframe and actually center myself and us rather than whiteness.
No,
that's deep.
Yeah,
I like that.
Because I feel like, not this is just off the top, so I didn't think about it too much, but like, I feel like the unbearable whiteness of running would make it almost like a white fragility in a way.
Exactly.
Like that would make the major audience like white people, as in white fragility, but then running while Black like makes it, because even like, I don't know, when I read the book, I feel like you talking about like home in your book, and like your family, and you kind of made Harlem Run feel like home.
Mm.
You know, like when you went to other group, like, but I'll just put it like that. You made Harlem Run feel like home, like how it was when you go to Harlem and when you go and you pass by all these people and people nod at you. That's how you made it feel. And so like I was able to understand that because like that's how when I do go to a family dinner with my family, like it feels welcoming, you know.
Yep, exactly.
But other places doesn't feel as welcoming, and it's not even like they're not. That's just low key the nature, like in a way.
Well, that's the culture, right? That's also a piece that I talk about around. And I'm not going to go too much into it because, to your point, I want people to discover it. But there are differences between Black culture, even between African American culture and Caribbean culture, but certainly white culture, right? And there's a lot of, white culture. I'll say and I say it in the book. A lot of it is like a coldness and a separateness. And oh my God, it reminds me of that. What is it, Key and Peele episode where one of them. I guess Jordan Peele is a Barack Obama, and he's shaking hands with people, and he's shaking hands with the white people. He's like, yes, yes. And the black people was like, yo, and they dap up. Like, I mean, is he lying?
Yo.
Yeah.
Not for real. That part is good. That part is good. I look forgot what I was gonna say, but you guys need to go read it, and you guys need to read that part through. Oh, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Because like because Urban Whiteness of running, like you're not I don't feel like you're here, like you're not here to like to teach to teach, you know, like you're telling your story, like you're not teaching like, all right, this is how white people, you guys need to stop being more unbearable and everything like this, like you just said it. It's not about you, it's about the system that you've been brought up to and everything, and you should be mad at this. So I think the way that you laid it out and people being able to experience your story and you running while Black, it's I think it's gonna be a way that anybody's gonna be able to ingest this, you know.
Yeah.
I want to bring you on tour with me, man. Like you are such a reader and you got it.
I still don't like to read though, to be honest. I'll do it for the work though. I'll do it for the cousin, for big sis, you know.
I appreciate that.
You're gonna get into running. I mean, you're gonna get into reading after you read this book, bro.
I doubt that, but pray for me. We'll put I'll put on my vision board.
Really, the whole book to me is a journey. It's a whole journey. So like, I mean, those are the best reads, like, to be honest. And there's just so much growth throughout the book. And I definitely didn't feel like it was teaching either.
Yeah.
I was just reading a story about an amazing woman. But I want to talk I think we're getting closer to the end. So let's close out a little bit. But I'm like, man, like you're a mogul. You're a mogul at this point, you know? All the things.
I need mogul money, but yes, thank you.
Hey. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like you've created a new space. Like you've created a new space in running. You've created a new I don't know if the word is standard, but like something that people can reach for to be like and doing, like, I don't know that many people that do as many different things as you in the running community. But I guess my question is just more so like, 10, 15, like, what do you imagine? Like, do you have a goal in particular on something you want to do?
That's a really good question. And it's like, it's actually even hard for me to think about because I am getting to do so many things. I guess, 10, 15 years from now, I want my impact to be even deeper and greater, right? And I guess like the only person who I can think of is like Oprah when I think about her trajectory and starting. I want to be the person that's making the decisions. I could do this TV show forever, and I hope I can. I hope it's on a bigger platform. I hope I get to travel with it and meet people across the world doing incredible things. I'm already interested. I'm already working in like policy and decision making around running. Maybe that leads to me being somehow more politically involved, right? Like I hope that I continue to get to be in all these different spaces, but having a deeper impact and like always being connected to bring other people up, right? Like who else is in this space, and who, like, if only I just sent that email, I could connect them to where they want to be or need to be. You know, I want mentorship to be a huge part of my role. Because listen, if everybody can get moving, the world will be a much better place in terms of, in my story, running opens me up to the power of mental health. So therefore, I started going to counseling. I started seeking treatment. I started looking at my body differently. I started pushing myself for new opportunities, right? Like, I started feeling a sense of connection. So movement is such a powerful vehicle for people. And I just want to be somebody pressing that message in a bigger way.
Yeah, I think it's crazy you got a TV show, man. I think, hey.
Yo, who are you telling? And that the premiere is supposedly December 1st. So it's coming.
Hey, we'll put in the good word for Oprah for you.
Thank you.
She's the homie now. You know, we got on
Thank you.
We'll put in the good word for Oprah for you.
I would appreciate that.
I was wondering, do you, I bet you don't care about this, but I was reading the book and a question came to me. Like, you think any New York run groups are going to be offended about what you were saying? Like, I don't like, you to describe when you
gotta
went to
get
a lot
spicy,
of run,
huh?
Yeah,
you had to get spicy real
you went to a
quick.
lot of run groups, specifically this one run group. They were shouting obscenities. You feel me, on the mayor's lawn, jumping up. I was like, oh.
I kind of want to know who that was.
Listen, first
I'm
of all,
just curious. When they're reading this book, they're gonna be like, oh, wait, hold on. Alison talks to me like this.
I'll say this: the people who I really care about and who I have continued relationships with, they already are aware of what's written about them. Okay. There are other people who I still care about, but who don't know, and who may be surprised at my takes on them. But two things: one, it's anonymous. Two, what I'm sharing is my lived experience. And maybe it'll prompt them to think differently about how they see their space. The same could be true if somebody wrote a book about what their experience was like coming to Harlem Run or coming to another thing and they didn't like it. Like, the goal is not to shame folks, again, like, which is why there's no names. And the goal is really just to make people think differently and have different perspectives. And I hope this message is clear that I am not without flaws. I am not without mistakes, and no one is. But each of these moments can be a learning, right? And that group that was like shouting up and down and screaming obscenities, that group has come such a long way. And I actually, maybe this will give it away, but I continue to work in partnership with this group and with the co-founders. So, yeah, I mean,
they'll probably laugh at it then.
Yeah,
they'll probably be laughing at it.
Some people like will be a little salty. Guess what? I'm a little salty about stuff too. So,
I think that's really interesting though, just to the effect of like, there's a book about like, there may be other books about it, but there's like a book about like New York running crew culture, and you get to see somebody's perspective.
Yeah,
about
I don't
it.
think
Like,
there
dope.
is. Yeah, I don't think there is. And like, you know what I would love also, like, if I could have a book where, and maybe I'm not the right person because I have opinions, but like somebody who comes in and actually documents run crew culture, right? Yeah. Starting in New York, going to London, going to all these places. Like, we need that book, because if we don't tell this story, who's going to tell it?
Yeah, I think that's dope. Like a first of its kind, and I think can develop to other people. That person that was pissed off in this book is like, I'm gonna write my own. Feel me?
Exactly. Let's hear it. I'm here for it.
And then another question I want to ask as we close out too. I seen you interviewed Wyomia Tyus. We got to go see. We got to go see the legacy of speed with like Malcolm Gladwell. He was interviewing Wyomia Tyus, John Carlos, Tommy Smith, and Otto Bolden. And so, what was just the experience of like for you to interview Wyomia Tyus? That's a dope opportunity as well.
She's so awesome. She gave me this player's card with her signature on it. So cool. It's like this. Cool. Yeah, it's somewhere. Probably, who knows? Corey has it at school. But what I think is so powerful about Wyomia is that I see so much of myself in her. And, she was such a fighter. She was one thing that I took from that podcast I listened to, that you know, people would ask her like, what does she think about what Tommy did, or John, or this or this and that, and she was like, you know, I did this for me. Like, this was my way of showing my activism. And she didn't use these words, but she couldn't care less what other people did, right? Like, she wasn't worried about other people. She was worried about herself and how she showed up and what, you know, what impact she was going to make. And that's so powerful for me, because again, you can get so caught up in other people and who said this and who didn't pay attention to me and this and this and that. And she was living in a time where, I mean, she had those back-to-back Olympics and like had no sponsorship, had no endorsements. Like, can you imagine how much bigger she could have been, how much money, opportunity she deserves? So I just, interviewing with her was so powerful. I'm lucky I consider her a friend. I'm going to send her some of my new collection because she inspired that too. And I will never not say Wyomia's name. Like, everybody needs to know it.
Most definitely. And she got a lot of energy.
Right? Oh, man, that woman, like, she's my mom's age. She's in her 80s, and like, you would never know.
I didn't even realize she's in there. Yo. She does not look like she's in her 80s.
Yeah, she's powerful. She's somebody who has significantly changed the game.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. More people need to know her name, and more people need to say her name, like you said, like, not forget the impact that she was able to make. And, you know, people didn't realize the impact that she was making, but, you know, so definitely powerful stuff. But, Aaron, is that all you got, bro? Is that all we got for the pod?
This was wonderful. Like, I'm so glad that we got to connect about this, and I hope that, like, I keep coming back and I keep being the most podcasted person interviewer on your show.
Yeah, we always gonna need you on the pod. I mean, you always doing so many things, so I'm sure we're gonna stay connected. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If you ever need somebody to, you know, interview you in between the chapters of an audiobook in the future, you know what I'm saying?
And I know where to go. Yeah.
You know where to go. Two Black Runners Publishing coming soon.
Listen, I don't know if you're joking, but I see a lot for you. You know that. Like, I'm here to hype you because y'all are great. So thank you.
But everybody, go pre-order it right now. Joshua, when are you gonna drop this pod though?
First week of October.
It's the first week of October. It drops October 17th. Am I being correct, right?
The 18th, October 18th.
October 18th, y'all. Pre-order this. Go get it. It's gonna be the biggest running book y'all ever. Once a runner running with the Buffaloes, no, bro. Running While Black. Forget them. Running While Black. Go get that.
That's right. Thank you. Available wherever you buy books and on Audible as well.
Appreciate you, Alison. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, bros.